Hello, my friends. This is Cody C. Engdahl, the author that you know. And we're going to talk about my book review of the All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr. And I got to tell you, I was setting this up. Uh, as I'm getting older, I'm beginning to see my grandpa Beanie, Alvin Doyle Bean Blossom. I'm beginning to see him in the mirror when I shave. I could probably use a shave now, but when I shave or when I see myself on the camera here, because he was probably about my age when I first got to know him. And the thing that's kind of funny, several parallels. One is that my grandfather was blind. Now, hopefully I'm not going blind, but there is a hereditary genetic disease that caused him to lose his eyesight. But I think only women can carry it, and therefore my mother could not give it to me, and my mother's not going blind either. I can't remember exactly. Yeah, because he couldn't pass it on to my mom. But he got it from his mother. But one of the things that my grandfather liked to do, he lived in Lincoln, Nebraska, is he was being blind. He lived in an auditory world, and he listened to books on tapes, which I wish he were around today because my books are finally on Audible, and he could have listened to them. We used to correspond by sending cassettes to each other when I was a little boy, and we would go visit him in Lincoln, Nebraska. And one of the things about my grandfather was that because he was blind and he was kind of an audio enthusiast, he was like a CB, a home CB enthusiast. And so he had like a tabletop CB. He had a big antenna on top of his roof, and he had a tabletop in the kitchen, and he would sit there in his kitchen in Lincoln, Nebraska, and he would be able to hail truckers on CBs for probably a couple hundred miles radius all around his home. And when we would drive to Nebraska, this would have been in like the mid to late 70s. As a child, this is when Ford was putting CBs into cars. You could get them stock. And my father, who worked for Ford, got to lease a brand new car every year when he worked there. So we would, during the I would say mid to late 70s, all our cars, every year we got a new one. We got to lease a new one, had a stock CB. And so we would hail him. But he would sit in his kitchen room with his CB thing, and he would talk to people from all over the world. And is that not what I'm doing right now? I'm sitting in my kitchen with my own speaker, and I'm communicating to people all over the world, just like my grandfather. I wish you were around today to see it. Also, kind of ironic, my grandparents divorced when my mother was like 4, and my mother was, I don't think she was adopted by her stepfather, but I think she was always a Bean Blossom. That's my grandpa's last name. But she didn't get to know her real father until she was like 16 years old. And where am I going with this? Oh yeah, so my grandfather was remarried, and and when I was a little boy, I didn't understand that some of my grandparents were not blood related to me. I just thought some kids have, I think it was explained to me, some kids have 2 sets of grandparents, and I had 3 sets of grandparents, and they never explained to me why. I didn't understand until I was around 15, 16 years old, that 2 of them had been married, divorced in the 40s, and the man that my grandmother married and the woman that my grandpa married were not blood related to me, but they were my grandparents for sure. My grandmother married Bernard Thompson, and Bernard treated me like I was his favorite grandkid. At least that's how I felt. Maybe that's just my own narcissism. But my grandpa Beanie, who I look a lot like, is probably the only person that I look like that, and my uncle on my mom's side. He married a woman that I never knew her name. We knew her as Rusty, and she had red hair and freckles. And Laura has red hair and freckles. So I feel like Samuel Clemens, Mark Twain, said that history doesn't repeat itself, it echoes. And we're going to talk about that. And I feel like I'm an echo of my grandfather for sure. And then I'm sitting my kitchen table transmitting to the world just like he did in the 70s with a CB radio. And that we both married, or Laura and I are not married, but we both attached ourselves as life partners to a befreckled redheaded woman, which by the way brings me into the book that I'm reviewing here, all the light we cannot see, because there's so many parallels to my own life. That the one of the main characters, Marie Larie, I think is how you say her name, or Marie Larie, or however the French say it, is a blind girl. And just like my grandfather was blind, and just like my grandfather, she was somebody who had sight and lost it. And she's redheaded, and well, she's described as having freckles on her face, very freckled, and being beautiful, and having auburn hair. And is that not the woman that I'm with, Laura? So all sorts of little echoes of history repeating itself or echoing itself. And I think there's a lot of that in this book that we're going to talk about. And, we'll just get right into it. Well, I want to give you a little prelude to it firsthand about kind of like my morning and how we got to doing the review today. Is that it looks like I'm doing live streams quite a bit now, right? My intention is to do one at least once a week, not once a week, at least once a week. I'm not planning on doing them a lot unless it really takes off. And by the way, if you're watching this, please do me a favor. Get, as they say, smash the like button. Give me a like. If leave a comment, if you're especially if you're watching this recorded, because it helps the algorithm. And by all means, please subscribe to my channel. Subscriptions are free. It doesn't cost you anything. Doesn't do anything. You can decide if you want notifications or not. If you ask for notifications, I think they'll even email you to say I'm live, or to let you know that I've recorded something. I subscribe to a lot of channels. I have all the notifications turned off because I don't want to see the notifications. I just want to, when I'm ready to watch videos, I go to YouTube and I'll see all my favorite people have posted either live videos or short form videos. I'll line up a bunch of those and in my queue and just let them play as I like do dishes or, do things around the house that don't require heavy thinking. I don't do short form videos, like 10-minute videos. I think that's what the algorithm really wants, is for me to do like 10 to 15-minute videos on topics. And then and I guess that really grows your channel. I would like to grow my channel to 1,000, at least. I mean, that's my first kind of milestone I'm trying to hit. Once I hit 1,000, I think Amazon will start paying me a little bit. But that's not really the point here. The point here, and what I do, all of this is all about social media marketing. I'm a writer. I have 5 books out there, and everything I do on social media, first of all, I do enjoy it. But it's also to promote myself and promote my books. And I do it in several different ways. And one of which is I read other people's books. And if you're a writer, you should be reading. And Claire Taylor says, if you don't have time to read, you don't have time to write. And anybody who says, they write, but they don't read, you're fooling yourself. I'd like to know anybody who's very successful at writing lives that kind of life. It's kind of like, I hate food, but I'm a chef, or I hate music, but I'm a musician. It just seems crazy to me. I write because I love to read. I'm a reader first, and I write the books that I would like to read. I was telling Laura, the Prussian Prince, had I not been me, had I just, 10 years ago when I wasn't actively writing novels and just reading historical military novels, if I had seen that cover and read the back description, I would have gone nuts, man. I would have loved it, and I would have bought it, and I would have read it, and I would have loved every page of it. That's the kind of books you should be writing, whatever the kind of book you want to read. And hopefully there's a lot of other people who want to read that book too. uh, like Anthony Doerr's All the Light We Cannot See, which we're going to talk about here. So I decided that this is something I'm going to do. At first, it was just for me, and then I decided for people like that are my friends that could use the help with 5-star ratings and reviews on Amazon and Goodreads, to do that. And then I decided to do it for everybody, including Anthony Doerr. And I debated, should I do a review for Anthony Doerr? This guy is number one in so many. He's got a Pulitzer Prize winning novel. He's got millions of 5-star reviews. And I said yes. And not only that, but sometimes like some of these authors that are much bigger than me, I was like, do I really want to like harass them by letting them know I reviewed their books? And it was Angus Donald, and I was kind of afraid to tag him on Twitter when I did a review. And finally, I just kind of said, screw it. And I got kind of nervous, and I said, I'll do it anyway. And I tagged him. Guess what? He liked it, thanked me, and he shared it. And he's also shared some of my other stuff too. I got Lloyd Elmore Jr. here, who's also an author. He says, never trust a skinny chef or a bald barber. You got to read if you want to write. Lloyd, I cannot agree with you more. So anyway, this is going somewhere. So I as a author, and Lloyd can attest to this, on Amazon, which is great because especially as an independent, you have so many channels of what's the word I'm looking for? Stats that I can look at. I can look at my daily. I can look at my daily revenues, my daily royalties, and see the effect of my advertising or anything else I'm doing. I can also see my what do you call it? My ranking on Amazon, and I'm always watching that. And where was I going with this? Okay, there we go. Let's get to this. So anyway, I was wondering about Anthony Doerr. Do I review his books? Do I tag him? And there's kind of a funny thing about that too. And I know what it is. I'll go back. See, sometimes I forget what I'm talking about because I go off the rails because I talk too much and I go on tangents and then I forget my original point. My point is that I am always looking at my ranking, not only in overall Amazon books, but I also can see my ranking in like historical fiction, war novels, all these different subcategories of writing. And this book, Anthony Doerr's All the Light We Cannot See, has been dominating the charts. It's the top of historical fiction. It's the top of war fiction and military fiction and all these different categories that I compete in. And they say, you should look at, the top 100 books in whatever category that your book belongs in. Look at those books. Look at the covers. Do those covers look like your covers? Do the titles look like your titles? Are they following the same convention? Yeah, you don't want to completely copy other people, but you don't want to be something outside of what people are looking for. So these are proven things. If they're in the top 100, that means they're doing really well. They're selling, several copies a day, every day, if not hundreds of copies. So Anthony Doerr's books is a winner. And so finally I said, okay, you know what? I got to read this book because I got to see why this book is so far ahead of my book as far as readership, as far as ranking and all these things. And so I went to the Nashville Public Library, and now I take in books through the physical, digital, and Audible. And for like digital, there's two different ways you can check them out, and for Audible. So every single version of this book, I had to get on a waiting list. This book has been out since 2015, and the Nashville Public Library, every version of it, and they got like 20 copies. Every version of it, from print to Audible, has like a waiting list that's over 200 deep. So I just put myself on all of them because I do a lot of driving. And so I figure, well, I can listen to it while I drive, or I can read it on my Kindle, or if a hard copy. Well, the hard copy came up. unbelievable. And so I was like, okay, great. And I got it. And I realized, you know, I get some books from the library I can keep for months and months and months, because if nobody's waiting for it, I can renew it automatically. You can renew it 3 times. And so that's like 9 weeks. And then even after that, if nobody's waiting for it, all you have to do is you have to physically take it in and kind of like I'm giving it back, but I'm taking it back out. And now you got another 9 weeks. Or if somebody, while you have it on the first time out, reserves it, then you have to return it, which is fine. So I knew I had 3 weeks to do it. I had 3 weeks to read it. And so I decided to get busy and read it. Laura decided, because sometimes, Laura and my taste are a little different, not too far. She does like historical stuff, but she likes more things that are literary and more for women. I like guys blowing each other up and cutting each other with sabers. But every once in a while, we will find a book that we're both interested in and we'll both read, and then we have our own little micro literary club. Laura and I both read Lloyd Elmore Jr.'s Malinville together, for example. I'm trying to think, was there something else that we read and we were able to talk about with each other? So she bought it, used version on eBay for like $5 for a paperback. Great deal on this book, $5. Of course, this book came out in 2014, so it's can't do the math. 12 years old. Is that right? Jesus. Is that right? No, I can't do math. 14, 8 years old. Okay. I'm embarrassed. It's 2024. So 6 years to 2020. 10 years old. It's 10 years old. I was somewhere in between. See, I was a liberal arts major. I just showed everybody how stupid I am. Anyway, I was hustling to get it done so I can return it in time. And that's the reason why we're going live with this right now, is because I got it done today and I returned it, and I had to pick something else up, a book on the Franco-Prussian War, because my next book is a book that takes place in the Franco-Prussian War, of course. And that one right now is, the working title is The French Fiasco. So back to what I was saying about being about, do I do a review on this? Is it helpful? All that kind of stuff. This book is it's 531 pages, but honestly, I think if you took some of the air out of it, it'd be probably within the 300-page range, because I don't know if Dewar's other books are like this, but it's very much like Kurt Vonnegut. If you ever read Kurt Vonnegut, he writes very short chapters, and so like a page and a half sometimes, or a half a page or 2 pages. And so because of this, it breaks up very quickly, and so there's always this dead space, half a blank page, and then the next segment. And I think what he does, I'm not quite sure, there's not a list of chapters, but he's got numbered sections, which I think are the chapters, which has like a blank page and then 1. It actually starts with 0, 1, 2, and it goes up to like 13 or 14. But then within it are titled segments. I'm trying to show this. All right, so we have Africa Stop HIV, says Stop AIDS, which is a good message, but I think that's also a little bit of spam. Thank you, Mr. Africa Stop AIDS virus. Good message. So, where was I? See, now Mr. Africa Stop HIV AIDS virus just threw me off my game. Yeah. So it actually reads pretty quickly, because, and I've learned this psychology about short chapters, is that, first of all, having a big long book, I think we talked about this before, like over 80,000 words. If it's a really long book, sometimes people are slow to read it or slow to start reading it, because it feels like a big task. And the other thing is, if you have really long paragraphs and really long chapters, sometimes people have a hard time getting it through. But if you give them lots of breaking points, give them rest points, they might actually read more, because if the sections are shorter and you finish one and it's like 10:36 at night, you're like, yeah, I think I can read the next one. You might actually end up reading more than you would have had it been one big long document with no end in sight. So there's some psychology to this. So that helped me kind of read through it rather quickly, and it's a good book. It's a good book. So last night I was, within the 100-page range, which, like I said, which is probably more like 60 pages. So I decided, okay, we're gonna finish this because it was due back on Friday, and I have a book sitting at the library waiting for me. So I got up this morning about 5, and I don't even set an alarm. I'm lucky if I sleep to 5. I usually give up sleeping if I'm awake and I look and I see it's past 4 o'clock, then I'll just get up. If it's still in the 3 o'clock hour, I might try to sleep some more. So I said, you know what, today I'm going to get this book done because I got other things to work on and do the review and all that. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how I do the reviews and how I use them as a tool for my own marketing. And I got up and I got my little chair and lit a candle. It was dark and it was storming outside, and I finished the book. And the book's very emotional. The book made me cry several times reading it. It's a very emotionally. It's got a lot of emotional context to it, and if you're someone who cries easily, it'll get to you. So I was kind of raw, and I got done, and there's like this weird, especially when you read a good book and you feel almost like that, there's kind of like a sense of achievement when you finish reading a book. But if it's a really good one you're enjoying, there's a little bit of a sense of loss, that you're no longer going to be reading this book that you enjoyed. And also because the book is so full of heavy emotions that made me emotional. I was kind of in an emotional state, and I'm going to embarrass myself here, but I got up and I was going to make breakfast, but I'd been up and I had my coffee, and I went into the bathroom and I sat down on the stoop with my phone, and I thought I'd look through some social media while I was sitting there, and I checked Twitter and I had notifications, and what I saw when I clicked on it was that another author, C. Elman Mead, who writes Military Dystopian Future, had read my book, Blood for Blood at Nashville, and reviewed it for 5 stars and shared it on Twitter and tagged me in it. And it's exactly what I do for other authors. And somebody had done it for me. And I just finished the book. I was emotional, and I sat there with my pajama bottoms at my ankles on the stoop, and I wept. I cried, man. I was touched. It was a beautiful thing. What a nice guy. He's on my. I just retweeted one of his books. He's got 2 out. I'm going to try to get around to reading one of them. I think he might be commercially published because his books are like $8.99 for the Kindle. It's usually guys who are commercially published are selling for more, as opposed to us independents that can slip underneath and charge like $2.99 or $3.99. But and it was a beautiful review. We'll get to that later. But it touched me, and it was an act of kindness. And so Anthony Doerr may never see any of my tweets or my reviews. What's really funny is, so I went and I looked for Anthony Doerr, and I I tagged him in my review on Twitter when I shared it on Twitter. And I only come to find out that it wasn't him I tagged. It's some parody account that uses his likeness and his name, and it's not blue check mark, and it says this is a parody account, and I love dank memes. So anyway, if you click on his, that's not him, and I'm an idiot, but yeah, whatever. Anthony, if you ever hear this, a great book, sir, and I enjoyed it. I'll tell you something too, is one of the things I'm kind of learning about, and it's still kind of nebulous to me, but there is a difference between literary fiction and genre fiction. And I would say that Anthony Doerr and I are good examples of the two. Although I would call myself genre fiction. Um, I write genre fiction with hints of literary fiction in it. And what's the difference? We're both writing war novels, but I'm writing with about like the soldiers and the training and with the tropes of the battles and doing the action scenes and kind of satisfying the readers that are looking for that. Where Anthony Doerr is writing a very emotionally charged, complex story. Genre fiction is usually very plot driven. I'm sorry. Yes. And literary fiction a lot of times very character driven, and this is very much a character story. It's a beautiful story. Let's do this. We'll go to my review, and I'm going to present, and I'm doing my reviews a little different, and I'll explain it to you in a minute. But let's I don't want to get bogged down too much. First of all, let's look at this. This is the page. Look at it. It's got 4.5 stars, which is excellent. And that's out of 223,269. On Goodreads is 4.3, but over 1 million ratings. I don't think I'm up. Usually when you do reviews on Goodreads, they're immediate. On Amazon, they have to be approved. And especially, I did not buy it from Amazon. I got it from the library, and I think you're allowed to do a certain number of unverified purchase reviews a week or a month or whatever like that, so long as you don't abuse it. And usually I'm getting things through what do you call it, Amazon, but every once in a while I am getting it from the library, and so that will probably be up. So instead, what we'll do is we'll go to and I guess I can kind of explain this now. So like I said, everything I ultimately am doing, even when I'm promoting other people and writing reviews, is that I'm promoting myself. So the old way of doing things was I was writing the review on Amazon, which I still do, and sharing that, but I'm also copying and pasting it, and I was sharing it to Goodreads. And then I was taking the Goodreads version, which is more shareable as the review itself, and not the landing page for the book, and sharing that, and that being the vehicle that I share on all my social media and Twitter, except for LinkedIn. And for some reason, LinkedIn, when I was sharing from Goodreads, the preview would not come up. So instead, on LinkedIn, what I would have to do is I have a blog on WordPress, and there's a way that when you write on LinkedIn, it'll give you like a little bit of code that you can copy and paste into your WordPress account, and it'll format it as a blog on your WordPress account. And so I would do that and then share that onto LinkedIn. And then I thought about this, and I'm like, okay, I'm sharing all these Goodreads review. I mean, it's always, everything's going to be reviewed on Goodreads and on Amazon, because that's where it counts for authors. Every author wants a 5-star review on their books on Goodreads and Amazon. So please do both of those things for all your favorite authors, me included. But to share it, like when people click on it, it's taking them to Goodreads, and they may see, my review, but they may not know that I'm a writer and that I also have books. So I thought, wait a minute, why am I directing everybody to Goodreads when I can direct them to my blog, which I'm always trying to build and get more people to subscribe to my blog and all that. But also on WordPress, it has a function where you can implant, or however you say that, on-page previews of Kindle books that are on Amazon. So in other words, it doesn't take you to Amazon. You can look at the preview, the Amazon preview of a Kindle book on your WordPress article. This is wonderful, and it's great marketing. So now what I do is I write a review of somebody, I put it on WordPress, and I say, check out their book here. And then there's a built-in preview on that article where you can look at the first, 20 pages of their book. And then below that I said, and check out my latest book here. So now when I'm sharing all this stuff, and especially when I'm tagging famous authors and sharing on Twitter, anybody who sees it is going to read that review, including the author, and then they might go down and see, this guy's an author too. Oh, and he's got a book too. Let me check that out. So all these little tiny things, when it comes to book marketing, it's like, imagine like trying to tear down a dam, right? Like there's really no big thing that you can do, but all the little tiny holes in the dam create more and more pressure until finally it breaks and the water comes gushing through. So when it comes to marketing, every little tiny thing that you can do helps create that snowball effect. So like on my Gmail account, my Gmail account, I have my signature has a link, a picture and a link to my book. Every time, business, whatever, every time I send an email through Gmail, there's a link to my book and a little picture of the cover in case someone's interested. All these little tiny things you can do add up. And we'll talk about that because I'm working on starting an email list, which is something that everybody says you should do. It's something I've been avoiding, and I know why I've been avoiding it. It's tough. I wanted to cry yesterday, we'll get into that. But anyway, let's get to the review. So what I'll do is, it's not up on Amazon, it'll probably be up like tomorrow, but we will look at this. So here's my, this is my Facebook page. Let me make sure I am sharing that. Yep. Okay, good. And I posted my, let's see here. I posted my, okay, that's the thumbnail for this. And see, this is all part of it. So I make the review. I put it on Goodreads, Amazon, and my blog. And then I share the blog everywhere. Then I create a thumbnail like this, and then I do a YouTube live, and I share that everywhere. So this is what it looks like, the blog review. And here's the title that I use for Amazon: A Tragic Dance Between Childhood Wonderment and the Horrors of War. And then you can see, Cody C. Engdahl.wordpress.com. So here we go. This is WordPress is free. There's a paid version. There's that handsome devil right there. Let me make sure this is that you're seeing this. No. Okay. Oh, that's right. Because I clicked. Okay, so that opened up a new window. So let me make sure I am. No, not that. Sorry. Stop, and then share screen. And all right, there we go. There we go. And let me make sure I'm still here. Yeah. Hi, I'm still here. Okay, great. I'm going to not see the chat here for a second as I read this. So this is what my blog looks like. There's me. I might update that. I have a better picture. Cody C. Engdahl, historical novelist. Here is the photo. I took a photo of this morning because I didn't get it from Amazon. So I figure if I had a physical picture of me holding the book, look at that Pulitzer Prize winner right there, that I would that they would be more agreeable to approving it. Sorry about the color. I couldn't get the color right. It came out weird because it was kind of dark in there and it was early morning light. And here's my review. My review of All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr. My rating, 5 out of 5 stars. A tragic dance between childhood wonderment and the horrors of war. After seeing this book dominate the top of the charts I am competing in, I had to read it. I'm happy I did, even though I was left humbled, and haunted. The book is a binary story of two people in two timelines slowly intertwining and converging into an inevitable conclusion, both beautiful and heartbreaking. The book starts in August 1944 as the Americans are preparing to bomb San Malo on the Brittany coast. The timeline is the climax of this timeline is the climax of the book. The second timeline begins in 1934. It tells the story of how the two protagonists are inexorably drawn to the same place and moment. This book ticks back and forth like the steady beat of a metronome through both character stories and the two timelines until all the threads come together for the conclusion. She is a freckled-faced blind French girl growing up in Paris. He is an albino, or at least I believe he is by his white hair, who is a German orphan growing up in a coal mining town in Western Germany. They'd both be considered oddities in the most normal of times. But during this time, they are now merely two of the millions of tragic characters in World War II. Both the children are infected with an intellectual curiosity that carries them through the horrors of war with a sense of hope and wonderment. The haunting refrain, "What you could be," appears throughout the book. The writing style is light and lyrical. The scenes are impressions, word paintings that convey texture and emotional context as the clues to the plot are revealed. Honestly, I found the style off-putting at first. The use of the present tense always seems gimmicky to me. The short Vonnegut-like segments were jarring and distracting at first, but this only lasted for the first few pages for me as I settled into the rhythm and tone of the book. Pay attention to the little things along the way. Excuse me. They are threads that make up the fabric of the story. They're like radio waves bouncing off the buildings and growing bigger with echoes that sound throughout the book. The story tightens like the concentric turns of a nautilus, like the namesake of the submarine in the novel that the girl is reading throughout the story, or the snail shells that she collects. All these things are clues and themes woven into the narrative, historical, and fantastical structure of this book. You should read it. I really like it. And then this is what I do. So I don't do this when I copy and paste that bit of code into to replicate this into WordPress. It brings along this link here, and that will link to all my reviews of all the books have reviewed on Goodreads so far, which I think is quite a few, maybe over 100. I'm not quite sure. Then this is what I'm talking about. So this is, let me just make sure that you can still see this. Yes. So this is what that looks like. There's a bit of coding that you do here, and see, like here it says buy on Amazon or share or free preview. So we click the free preview, and let me just make sure it's doing, yeah. And then what you can do is you can preview the book right here. And it's not taking you away from the platform. And see, here's the opening quotes. Philip Beck says, in August 1944, the historic walled city of Saint Malo, the brightest jewel of the emerald coast of Brittany, France, was almost totally destroyed by fire. Of the 865 buildings within the wall, only 182 remained standing and were damaged to some degree. Philip Beck. It would not have been possible for us to take power or to use it in the way we have without the radio. Joseph Goebbels. And then Chapter 0, 7th August 1994, leaflets. At dusk, they pour from the sky. They blow across the ramparts, turn cartwheels over rooftops, flutter into the ravines between houses. Entire streets swirl with them flashing white against the cobblestones. Urgent message of the inhabitants of this town, they say. Depart immediately to open country. The tide climbs, the moon hangs small and yellow and gibbous on the rooftops of the beachfront hotels to the east, and in the gardens behind them, a half dozen American artillery units drop incendiary rounds into the mouths of mortars. And then, see what I mean? Like, that's the beginning page, and there's nothing else. And then you turn the page, and then you have another short thing. Bombers. They cross the channel at midnight. There are 12, and they are named for songs, Stardust and Stormy Weather and In the Mood and Pistol Packin' Mama. The sea glides along far below, splattered with the countless chevrons of whitecaps. Soon enough, the navigators can discern the low moonlight lumps of islands ranged along the horizon. France. Intercoms crackle. Deliberately, almost lazily, the bombers shed altitude. Threads of red light ascend from the anti-air emplacements up and down the coast. Dark, ruined ships appear, scuttled or destroyed. One with its bow shorn away, a second flickering as it burns on the outmost island. Panicked sheep run, zigzagging between rocks. Inside each airplane, a bombardier looks through an aiming window and counts to 20, 4, 5, 6, 7. To the bombardiers, the walled city on its granite headland, drawing ever closer, looks like an unholy tooth, something black and dangerous, a final abscess to be lanced away. And then the girl, and this is where you meet one of the main characters, and it tells, and and then it just goes on, and then the boy, and then what it does is it's gonna bounce San Marlo, and it's gonna, like I said, it's gonna kind of tick-tock back and forth between these two protagonists. She starts off in the 1944 timeline that starts in August 7th. They're both in San Marlo. He's a German soldier. She's a French girl. But then after chapter 1 starts, and it's 1934, and she's a little girl in Paris, whose father works for a museum. And he is a boy I can't remember the name of the town, but it's a coal mining town in Western Germany, and he's an orphan. He and his sister, I believe, are albinos, because they're both described as having white skin and white hair. Their father died in the mines, and they're growing up in an orphanage, a kind orphanage, with a kind woman who is in charge of it. And what's interesting is, and here's where I will not spoil the end. But Laura's one of those people. She wants to know nothing at all. She wants to go into everything absolutely cold, with no expectations. So, Laura, if you're listening, or if you're like Laura, stop reading or listening now. But what's interesting is, like I said, she's a blind girl. He's an albino orphan. So they're both kind of outcast in society. But they're both. He becomes obsessed with radios, and he finds the parts of broken radios, and he's able to construct one. And he and his sister set it up in the attic of the orphanage, and late at night they sneak up there, and they're listening to programs, one seeming to be a children's program in French, coming from France, that they listen to. The little girl, in the beginning, she's wearing glasses, but her father is a keysmith for a museum of natural history in Paris, probably a real one, and she loses her sight. And we're also introduced to the MacGuffin. There's a MacGuffin in this. It's a diamond called the Sea of Flames, and there's a curse to it. And these are the fantastical. There are fantastical elements that are not like overt, but they're in there. And she's told as a little girl the story of this diamond that has been kept hidden for 200 years in the museum. That there's like instructions that they can't open the vault for 200 years when they got a hold of it, but it's cursed, and whoever possesses the diamond the curses, the legend is that the diamond was created as a gift from one god to the other. It was supposed to be like to the god of the sea or whatever, and it was supposed to go into the sea. But like a young prince found it in India, and he kept it, and it made him, it healed him, and it kept him alive. But whoever holds the diamond is protected and immortal, but everybody around them will die and there'll be sorrow and heartache. And whether that's true or not, one thing about curses is that in a very non-magical way, curses work because if you believe them, you make them happen. So that becomes kind of a MacGuffin, because later on we meet a Nazi sergeant major. It was interesting that he was a sergeant major and not like a lieutenant or a captain, but his expertise is collecting. He's a diamond cutter and a collector of treasures. And of course, we know that the Nazis looted Europe as they conquered, just like the French did during the Napoleonic times. And so his job is to assess and evaluate all this treasure. And he finds out about this thing and wants to find it for the Reich. So he's on the path of finding this diamond that's part of the Museum of Natural History in Paris. And all those things and the timeline. So what the story does is not only goes back and forth between the boy and the girl, but every once in a while, this Nazi diamond hunter as well is kind of the antagonist or one of the antagonists. His story starts getting mixed in it too. But then the book will go from basically the climax. It starts with the climax, which is August 7th of, like August 7th through August 14th, I guess, is like the climax of the whole story. And so it'll go from that, and then it'll back up to the past, and it'll go a little further, and then it'll go back up to the 1944, and then it'll go back in the past again. And it'll keep going back and forth between these two timelines and between the two characters, and every once in a while the Nazi as well, until finally those two timelines converge. And where the long timeline that starts in 1934 overtakes the timeline that started in August of 1944, and then becomes the main timeline. And the characters go on their own paths. And, I will say, here's some spoilers. I won't spoil the whole thing. I'm just saying it gets to this. She eventually, this from the beginning, because in the beginning, she's in Saint-Malo, and is being bombed by the Americans. This is in chapter 1. So, somehow she gets there. Well, she and her father are refugees from Paris. And at some point, she's alone in the house as it's being bombed. And you'll find out how she got there, how she came to be alone, all that stuff. The boy in the very beginning in 1944 is a German soldier who is, I think he's a radio operator or something like that. And he and his buddies get buried alive underneath, because the radio receivers and all that are down in the basement of a hotel, and the hotel collapses on them. So they're trapped down there. And so then so that's the 1944 August timeline, but we go back in time. She's a little girl in Paris. He's a little boy in this town. And we follow their story. How does she end up from Paris and learning the things that she learns and understanding things she understands to being in Saint-Malo? How does he become a soldier, and the path that he follows that brings him there, where their stories are inexorably going to intertwine and become this story. And what I meant about child, intellectual curiosity and childhood wonderment, she's blind, but she's fascinated with marine biology because of her time growing up in the museum and learning about mollusks and snails. And that's why I talked about like the nautilus and the concentric rings of the nautilus or a snail, because the stories like it's like going into a shell of a nautilus, and as the opening's big, but as you go around and around in the spiral, the rings get tighter and tighter as the story gets tighter. See what I mean? And I think he's making that reference and that theme on purpose. The boy is obsessed with radio and radio technology, and is somewhat of a savant, that puts him on a path because he's naturally talented when it comes to mathematics and radios and engineering, things like that. And that's why I talked about like radio waves bouncing off. And so whereas the Nautilus ring, it's concentric and the story gets tighter and tighter, the radio waves get wider and wider as they move outward. So, and I think radio waves and the shells and Nautiluses are two of the like contrasting but yet complementary forces that drive the narrative as we go through the book and become metaphors and motifs that are constantly being recycled and moving its way through. So yeah, it's masterfully done. Am I going to run out and read another? That's another thing about genre or literary writers. I don't think he's got a lot of books. I think he's got. Let's just take a look here. I'll close this. Oh, before we get done with this though, because everything's about me, right? So I just read you some of the preview that's on my blog, right? That's my blog. Then under the preview, it's only fair to put his first, but then my preview. Check out my latest here. So this is great. So because a lot of people like this book, have been interested in reading it, and so they see they might read this. It's also, by the way, a series on Netflix, and one of the things that prompted us to read it was we saw it was on Netflix. We wanted to watch it, but I always like to read something first if I can, and then watch it. It's a fun game. So that's the reason why we decided to read this book, because now we're going to watch it and we'll give our I don't know if I'll do a review. I'm not one that reviews movies or shows, but I might mention about it, or you can ask me if I've seen it, and I'll tell you what I thought about it. The book's always better, of course, but see, that's all part of book marketing. I wrote an article about this book, and then at the very end is a little, hey, by the way, I write books too. Check me out. Okay, so let's go back here, and we will stop that share, and then let me do present, and we'll share this screen. I'm really just curious. So Anthony Doerr, let's go to his authored page. He is not big on social media. He's not on Twitter, not that I can see. And so if we do, okay, let's do all books. Let's do all books. Anthony Doerr is not that big of a doer. He's got, well, let's see. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4. I wonder if this is a theme, because the girl in it is a shell collector. And look at this. This is a theme. Look at this. The memory wall. And what is that? That's the inside of a shell, the shell collector. This is a theme that he is. So a lot of these are what do you call it? A lot of these are translations. I think he only has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 books. He's got one more than I do, but he's been writing longer. And then he's short stories. Are those all his short stories or a collection? Yeah. And then I think the rest of these are just translations of those books. So as opposed to some of the genre writers that have like 24 books out and are still writing 1 to 2 books every year, that's kind of one of the big differences, I would say. I write about the soldiers and the action and the fighting and the adventure and the fun. He's writing about, the people who are left behind. The civilians affected, the blind French girl, the albino boy who is a soldier. But he is kind of not a very enthusiastic soldier, I guess is a good way to put him. So that's that. A couple things I wanted to tell you. First of all, I'm going to be interviewed on a podcast tomorrow called Books 101. That's Anthony. I'm sorry. No, it's Daniel Lucas. I'll be posting that. Daniel is a very hardworking man. He's got books. He's got multiple podcasts that he does. He's somewhere in Canada. We're going to be doing that at, I think, 8 o'clock in the morning. And he's usually pretty quick at turning around. So I'll be putting that out there. I'm going to Memphis. Well, I'm going to South Haven, but I'm going to Memphis. So South Haven is in Mississippi, but it's just south of the border, and it's like 10 minutes from downtown Memphis. I'm staying near Graceland. It's a complete dive of a hotel in the ghetto, but it's just me, so I don't have to worry about my mom and my girlfriend who came last time. I'm going to be at the Mid-South military history or military and Civil War show. This is like my third or fourth year. I can't remember how many years I've done it. They're really nice. They comp me a table because I play fiddle all day long, and I usually do pretty well selling books. This year, I am one of the speakers. So I'm doing my American Civil War, a brief history of the American Civil War through fiddle tunes. I like the long titles, the very 19th century. I don't recommend putting that on a book, but it's fun to do that. And I'm very excited about it. I've accumulated a lot of hotel points because some of the work I do research work in which a lot of time field work for research companies, in which I have to stay in hotels a lot, and they pay for that, but I expense it. So I usually do it through. I have a Wyndham's reward account. So every time I'm out of town working for somebody, I'm collecting points. And then when I have to go do a book talk or whatever, where I have to travel, then I use those points. And I usually stay in a dive, but it shares me because, these book talks, I'll make some money. But is it really worth driving 3 hours there, 3 hours back, and buying a hotel room? Probably not. But it does help build the readership for sure. So I have it all planned. I'm going Friday morning. Doors open at 1, so I'll get there probably about 11 so I can set up my table. And then I'll probably be there till like 5. And then I've already picked out a barbecue place close to the hotel. I'm going to go get some barbecue, and I'm bringing some wine, and I'll be sitting in my room. Maybe I'll do a live broadcast from there. Who knows? And then Saturday morning, I'll be there at 8. Doors open at 9. My talk is at 11. And if you're interested in going, I did put a little flyer with a link on it on my Facebook page. Or if you can't find it, just ask me, and I'll send you the information. I think it's $10 to get into the overall show. And then once you're in the overall show, you can go to all the presentations. And so Saturday is a great day to go. That's the big day. Friday is more like selling to the other presenters, that's the day where all the people like, inside trading, where like all the different presenters and tables buy stuff from each other and work all that kind of stuff up. Although the public is welcome. Saturday's the big day. Saturday's the day when all the public shows up, and hopefully I do well. Sadly, I'm not going to have as many books as I wanted. I kind of slept on checking my inventory, so I only have like 11. Well, of some of the books, I only have like 13 copies. I would like to have at least 20 or more to do a 2-day show like this. Although I probably won't sell that much. We'll see. But my newest book, The Prussian Prince, I only have 11 copies because I had 3 that were already, like, while I was still writing. I have 2 friends that always want signed copies sent to them. So 3 of them. One woman, she's got a rental, so she keeps a copy of all my books in the rental for her renters if they want to read them, and then she also gets a copy for herself. So she gets 2, and then my friend Mike, who I served with in the Army, he always buys one as well. And then so I was going to have at least 17, but 6 of them were damaged. So and I've learned this, when I get a box from Amazon, I made the mistake of, I got a box. I don't even open it until I go to some place where I'm going to sell them. And you open them up, and I've had times where, like, There was a problem with the printer, and some of the books. This only happened one time. Some of the books didn't have, like, you could tell was running out of ink. This time they didn't pack them tightly, so some of the books got bent, like the covers got bent and the papers got squished. I'm like, well, I can't in my right mind. You got to do better. So I sent them back. Amazon's pretty good about it, but I still think it's pretty wasteful. And hopefully Amazon sells them as used copies. That would be smart. I have another box of those coming, but right now it's Amazon says they're going to arrive Friday through the weekend, which I will be already gone when that happens. But sometimes they get to me early, and so I'm hoping that they show up by the end of the day Thursday, and then I can take them with me. If not, I'm going back. Let me get my calendar up here. Actually, let's see if I can pull it up. I don't mind showing you my calendar. Share screen. Let's do window. Let's see. Open up my calendar. Go back here. There it is. Yeah, look at that. I can share my calendar. Hopefully I don't have anything embarrassing on here. I probably should have looked. So let's see here. Today, this is today. Yeah, Shogun begins, by the way. I bet Lloyd's going to watch that. Laura and I decided it's fun we watch a lot of stuff that's already been out for a while. Like we're watching the end of the Karate Kid show. So we kind of watch it at our own pace, but it's fun to be watching a show as it's coming out. So we decided we're going to at least give that a chance. Tomorrow that's my interview with Books 101. And that's payday. That's where I get my big fat royalty check. And then this is me in. If you're in the UK, Rampage on the River is going to be 99 pence. It's 99 cents right now in the US. That's for the Kindle version only. I'm running ads, and basically the way I run ads now to not overspend is if I make back at least the same amount of money I'm spending on ads on Facebook, I'll extend it another day. But I do it day by day. I'll do it for like 3 days. And then on the third day, if I'm making my money, at least making my money back each day, then I'll do another day. The first day that I'm not making my money back, then I cut it. So we're still running ads, doing pretty well in the US. And then starting next week or starting Friday, we'll be running ads in the UK. And we'll let that run as long as we can. And then let's see here. Got that covered here. And then we'll have some specials for Blood coming too. Okay. Trump trial. Laura and I like to follow politics. Let's see here. And then March I'm going back to Memphis to do another talk. There it is. I'm on the 21st, I'm going back to Memphis. I'm going to be talking at the SUV, the Sons of Confederate Veterans. Okay, maybe I got that spelled wrong, but it's the Chalmers camp. Really nice guys. I've been there before. I'm going to do a talk about Civil War. I got about 4 different Civil War generals in the Mexican-American War. We'll talk about their experience in the Mexican War and how it relates to their time in in the American Civil War. Once again, I have another one. Yeah, it's SCV. I got another one on the 6th of March or April in Brandon, Mississippi. It's another Confederate veteran, Sons of Confederate Veterans. I'll be talking to those guys, probably doing the fiddle talk. They just confirmed not too long ago. There is the thing I'm very excited about is, I think I talked about this in my last one. Yeah, I got some friends who are rather big, well-known, commercially published authors in England and Scotland. They got a podcast called Rock, Paper, Swords. I think that's been going for a couple of years now. When they first came out with it, I've been a fan. They've been really nice and supportive to me. I never felt right asking, I don't want to ask, I want to earn. And Matthew Harvey helped me out with some advice, because he's much further along in his career. And by the way, okay, Lloyd, back to the Shogun thing. All right, this is a good endorsement. Lloyd Elmore Jr., who has a book coming out soon called Little Ronin, which is samurai culture. I watched the first 2 episodes. Amazing. Cannot wait, Lloyd. Cannot wait. So anyway, Matthew helped me out with a problem, or not a problem, with a question. And then a couple hours later, he said, "Hey, would you be interested in coming on the show?" I'm like, "Would I?" Absolutely. So I don't know when that will air, but right now we're scheduled to do that on the 2nd. The other big news is, and Lloyd, I'd be interested to know if you have. Lloyd, do you want to come on, or are you getting ready to go somewhere? If you want to come on, let me know. I will. I'll send you the link. Just say yeah, and I'll send you the link somehow. And then, but if not, I understand. Everybody says you need to have an email list, and the reason why is like you don't own the ground you're working on. So you don't own. You can get kicked off of Facebook, Twitter, even Amazon at any given day. And once you do, you're going to lose all your followers, all that kind of stuff like that. But not only that, once you set up your email list, it's yours. So you can advertise. You don't have to pay. Like I pay to advertise on Amazon. I pay to advertise on Facebook. But if I have an email list, I don't pay. I can send emails out. I wasn't crazy about the idea because I don't like getting emails a whole lot. I usually unsubscribe after I get too many from somebody. That is these email subscriptions. But everybody says you're fooling yourself if you're an independent and you're not emailing your readers and building that email list. So I decided to do it. But the problem is I've been following David Grogan and I've been following Brian Cohen's books and examples, but they speak in general terms about what you can do with it. What they don't speak about is the click by click nuts and bolts. So I went to MailerLite to start an account with them, and apparently it's free up to the first 1,000 subscribers, and then after that you got to pay. And so okay, that's fine. When I get to if I got 1,000 subscribers, I'll be happy to pay. Well, I come to find out that I have to have a domain. So I went back and forth. Do I really want to spend money on a domain? So I finally got one, and I got a good deal. I got engdahlhouse.com. And so I go back there. I'm like, okay, I got a domain, but now I have to have like a email service connected to that domain, and that costs money too. So I can be Cody or Cody C at engdahlhouse.com. And hopefully that's enough, because then there's also like a web page and web hosting software and all these things. So what was going to be something that I thought was going to be free, but just effort, is turning into a money hole. I wanted to cry yesterday because I usually am pretty good at figuring out like technology and things like that. But this was like, more than I can understand. And it looks like I have to pour more money down a hole that I don't even know if this is something I want to do or if it's going to work out for me. But I decided, okay, all these things are like like my domain name is good for a year, and then I have to re-up it. So I made myself a promise, give it a good try. And then you can decide after a year, I can give back the Engdahl House name, and go the route I'm going. But everybody seems to think that email, even though I'm like, well, you want me to fax them as well, or should I write it on cave walls? But because it seems kind of dated, but apparently everybody thinks that, not just Brian Cohen and David Gogren, who are big book marketing gurus, but even like Michael Stelzner of social media marketing podcasts, he'll have guests on. They'll talk about email marketing. So, as I grow, I guess it's like the next thing I need to do. So at some point I will be building an email list, and I will be, once I do that, I will be inviting people to join my email list. I'll be putting something in the back of all my books, like, hey, if you want to follow me for, get on my email list for, announcements for deals and book releases and things like that. I'm going to put it all on my social media, not only in the descriptions, but I'll be sharing it. And hopefully I can build a nice list that by the time the French Fiasco comes out, which I'm writing a book about everywhere between like about a year and a half. I think the last one came out maybe in 14 months. So probably between a year and a half is kind of where I'm lying right now. My goal is, I think the shortest time between releases should be 6 months. You got to give people time to read the last one, and not overwhelm them with books. That's just my personal philosophy, and I've heard some other people echo that. I think the longest you should be between books is 2 years. Kind of like Star Wars when I was a kid. Star Wars came out in 1977. Maybe it was 3 years, because then Lloyd would know this better than me, probably. I think Empire Strikes Back came out in 1980, and then Return of the Jedi is 1984 or 1983. So give people time to miss it a little bit. I mean, not too much time. I think the goal, that's the extreme. I'd say 6 months to 2 years. And if you're more than 4 years, you've given up writing. Like 4 years is the extreme, and that just means you gave up. If you're past 4 years, it means you left writing and then you came back to it. But to me, I think a healthy, I say the extreme is 6 months to 4 years. I think the healthy is 9 months to 2 years. That's kind of the Goldilocks. So that's what my hope is. So hopefully 2025 spring, maybe summer, maybe sooner. I'd like to get faster with my writing. But until I have, someone truly giving me a deadline, I'm going to do it in the time I think it needs to take, and we'll see. I had a literary agent reach out to me last week, and she was really nice, very pleasant to talk to. She wanted to know if I had a new project that she could sell, like a finished manuscript that was unpublished and finished that she could look at, and if she liked, she would go sell it, or if I was going to start it. I said, well, I just published my last one. I'd be interested in licensing out the series if you found someone who wants to invest in it. And I'm writing the, book 6. And she was like, well, it's hard for us to sell books that have already been published. I understand that. And something that's in the middle of a series. So I said, okay. And she goes, if you decide to start a new series, or you got a standalone book, let me know and we'll talk. And I said, okay, great. And just left the door open both ways. And I'll tell you the reason why I didn't say, oh my God, I got a literary agent, because it's not really my dream to be published through a commercial publisher. I just want to get as much reach as I can. So if one can do better than what I'm already doing, which I don't, with what I know now, I don't know if that's necessarily true. I know a lot of people get commercial contracts and it doesn't work out. So, and in the end, you're going to do better money wise if you're independent, if you're able to build your readership big. Getting signed by a commercial publisher might give you a shortcut, but it's a shortcut you're going to pay for on the other end, because of the 70% royalty that comes from like ebooks, for example. They're only going to give you like 25% on the first $10,000, and then 50% of that. As an independent, you get all of it, but you have to do the marketing yourself. And that's a fair trade-off to me. That may not be good for other people. Some people may not enjoy marketing. And not only do I enjoy marketing, and I'm doing it right now, but I'm a student of it. I am constantly learning and pushing the boundaries, like the email thing, which we'll I'll let you guys know how that goes. And once I get it figured out, if any of you want advice, absolutely. Lloyd, if you want to do an email thing, once I get mine figured out, I'll help you figure yours out. I like helping other authors. I'm not interested in doing like a paid for thing. That's a conundrum. If we're friends, or if I can help, if it's not too much of my time, I'm happy to give advice. I got a guy, Phil Lee. He sends me emails all the time. Hey, how do I do this? How do I do that? Sometimes even talk to him on the phone. I was actually going to call him this week to see, because he was having trouble with building his cover through KDP. And so I found out, Laura showed me how to do this, where I can remotely get into someone else's computer, because he's an older guy and he's kind of confused with the technology. So I was going to offer that I could remotely get into his computer and help him do the cover. But he published, and so he got it figured out. Hopefully, my advice helped him. So if you want advice, I'll help you with the advice, unless I get overburdened to it. Maybe someday I'd charge for it. But this is the conundrum that I have. Okay, Brian Cohen, who I think is book marketing Jesus. I honestly think he's brilliant. I follow him, everything he does, his podcasts, his workshops, all that kind of stuff. And I'm trying to get a job with him, by the way, as an account manager for his ad agency. And I'll have news on that one way or the other by the end of the week. But Brian admits this. He's like, yeah, I wrote a couple novels and they didn't do so well. But the books I've written about how to market your books are doing great. So he has gone really from being a novelist to a author coach and book marketer, which he's very gifted in. So you're not always good at both. Some people are one or the other. I feel like I'm good enough in both of them, and I enjoy both of them. So my thing is, I'm mostly learning marketing and all these things because I'm promoting myself and I'm growing my own authorship. And I don't feel quite right charging other people because I'm still learning by trying, trial and fail. What do they call it? Trial and error myself, and kind of feeling my way through. So I don't feel right taking other people's money unless I truly feel confident in what I'm doing and that I can do it for someone else, right? But here's the thing, right? Here's the catch-22, the chicken and the egg. If my efforts eventually really, really pay dividends, I'd rather spend time writing books and marketing them than marketing other people's books. See what I'm saying? So until I really feel like I got the marketing thing down where I can really rock it, I don't feel right charging other people. But at the same time, if I am really rocketing it, why would I be wasting my time doing it for other people when I could just be writing more books? And this is the conundrum I get in all the time, because there's a lot of well-meaning people who say, hey, you know what? You should have a podcast. What this kind of is. You should have a cooking show. You should write a blog. You should do this. You should do that. And some of those things I kind of do. But the truth is that it is not my intention to be a YouTuber. If I become one on accident, it's fine. It's not my intention to be a blogger. It's not my intention to do a cooking show. It's not my intention to do run a author coaching thing. It's my intention to write and sell novels, and anything I do out that isn't geared towards that, I have to really think about it, the worth of time and effort, and I don't want to spread myself thin. So I write and market my own books, and that's a constant journey that I'm learning. I'm getting better as a writer. I'm getting better as a marketer. Social media marketer. I do things like I play the fiddle, but I take that as secondary and a complementary to what I do. Now, if someone says, hey, we're going to pay you a lot of money to join our band and go on tour, okay, maybe I'll do that. But this is what I'm doing. This is where, everybody's got like a bucket of talent. Where are you going to spend that talent? you're gonna, you can. There's many things you can do with it. It's not exclusive to one thing. So you got to decide what that thing is, and then get really good at it and get successful. You're not going to get successful. I know a guy, I won't name names. He's an actor, he's a singer, he's a songwriter, he's a painter, he's a writer, he does all these things. And the reason why you don't know his name is because he hasn't picked. You got to pick your pony, man, and ride that fucker all the way to the end line. All right, that's enough for me. I went way long, went an hour and 20 minutes. Thank you, everybody. Do me a favor. You don't have to write like the big, long, boring reviews like I do. But if you have an author that you like and you're reading that author's books, give that author at least a rating. Those stars mean everything, because if you fall under 4 stars, if you're like 3.9 or 3.8, the algorithm on Amazon stops showing you to as many people. And there's enough idiots out there, not idiots, but the unfair people who are going to give you 1 stars and 2 stars for dumb reasons. So get out there, help your authors by giving them stars. Give them reviews. Reviews really help. Put them on. If you only do one place, do Amazon. If you do 2 places, do Amazon and Goodreads. If you do 3 places, I'll let you pick whatever 3rd one you want to do. But even if it's just 2 lines, just say, great book, couldn't put it down. You could just type that out and then keep it in your notes. And then every time you do it, you could just copy and paste, great book, could have put it down. You are doing your author a great service, whether it's your friend like me or Anthony Doerr, who will probably never read my review or even know my name. You're helping those people, and Anthony Doerr absolutely deserves it, because all the light we cannot see is a hell of a piece of work and a hell of a human effort writing it. And I recommend that book. And I will tell you this: I think I'm a better writer for having read it. That doesn't mean I'm going to emulate his style or write literary fiction like he does or anything like that. But it's still, the more you read, the better you get. And I really like how he evokes human emotion. And if you're reading my book, there's a lot of emotional context to everything. So I'm a better writer for that. So anyway, I love you guys. Take care. Stay safe. Keep reading. And I don't know if I'll do one maybe Friday night to talk about day 1. But I'll probably do one Sunday night to talk about the Civil War show. And basically I'm going to try to do this once a week. But like I said, if I got something, and that's why I've been doing it a lot lately, I've had a lot of news or a lot of things I can talk about. So that's why I keep coming up. And it keeps me from doing any kind of real because I got 2 things I got to do right now. I got to do some research for the next novel, which I'm going to start writing on Sunday. And I also have to figure out this puzzle that is the email list. All right. I've been Sam, been going for a long time. I'm losing viewers already. Love you guys. Take care, and see you in the next one.